Alrighty. Thanks everyone for coming along. Um, and we'll get the meeting start underway. And so tonight we've got Tony Langdon, VK3JED, I think it's going to be pretty hot today, Bendigo, um, to present on the M17 digital voice mode. So thanks very much, Tony, and over to you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And yeah, I'll try not to make it too much of a death by PowerPoint, but I am going to talk about M17, which is a fairly new open source digital voice mode for VHF UHF. So yeah, I'll just basically cover what is it, a bit about the history, some features, and then some notes on the development process and what's happened, how the average amateur can get involved, and I'll sort of talk about some of my involvements, and then how to get on air via whatever means that you may have available. And we'll finish with a live demonstration, and I'll also show a few different combinations of RF hardware that I have here in some of the following slides after the demonstration, and we'll have some time for questions. I'll be guided by, at that stage, you guys back at the club rooms. So without further ado, we'll go, what is M17? To quote the M17 project website, which you can see on your screen there, M17 is a new digital radio protocol in development as an alternative to those currently available, with freedom in mind, freedom in the code, the protocol, the voice codecs, and hardware. The goal is to provide a better option for digital radios in the future. Previous VHF, UHF DV modes, such as P25, DMR, System Fusion, D-Star, are either derived from commercial standards, they're proprietary, or they're mostly open with proprietary components, but particularly the vocoder. All the other modes use one of the proprietary AMB or IMBE variants from DVSI. IMBE does have an open source version as it's out of patent, but the AMBE modes, some of them, maybe some of them are definitely not out of patent yet, and you have to buy hardware to use them legally. So what does M17 feature? What's good about it? The number one, particularly for the experimenter hacker, those that have come across from the open source community, is M17 itself is open source. All components, including the vocoder, are free software under an open source license of some sort, and the hardware is also open sourced. The M17 website has all the specifications available. It's built by a global team of amateurs from around the world. Basically, like most of the digital voice modes, it's 9600 bits per second, 4 FSK, or 4800 symbols per second. There's a number of modes, the most common being voice only, codec to 3200 bit with some ancillary data. The next most common nowadays is packet mode, which is purely data, and any arbitrary data can be sent. You can even do packet radio over M17 if you really desire, using the modulation. There is, or at least was, I'm not sure the status of it now, a mixed voice using codec 2 1600 and data, sort of on a roughly 50-50 split. But that's not really seen in the wild. I think DroidStar supports it. There's short messages can be sent, You can use for file transfer. Basically, unlike some of the other modes, the data services pretty much up to the user, developers, what they want to carry across it. GPS location reporting, and there is integration available for the APRSIS system, so you can use your M17 radio as a tracker through your local gateway, and you'll appear on with all the APRS nodes. M17 supports encryption using AEX 128-bit from memory. Could be used for telecommand of amateur stations or satellites, and in VK emergency communications and training, also allowed to use encryption. And there's simplified reflector operation. So if you change your destination, like I did to get on our demonstration reflector, it implies a disconnect from whatever you're connected to before. Compared to my early IC91AD D-Star radio, it's a lot less fiddling. I'd simply go, all right, what I want to connect to, hit the PTT, and I'm there straight away. So, bit of history, the hows and whys. Started in Poland by Wojciech Kaczmarski, SP5WWP. The local amateur radio club in Warsaw, very heavily into digital voice modes. After experimenting with existing modes, Wojciech decided to design his own mode, which of course is what we now know as M17. His biggest issue was that he couldn't play with under the hood of all the modes, especially the voice codec. So he wanted something that he and other amateurs could tinker with at all levels. Codec 2, written by a fellow VK5, David Rowe, VK5DGR, is chosen as a vocoder, being 100% open source, licensed, and it performs reasonably well at the required bit rates, under 9600. A little known fact is that M17 is named after the street address of the club where it was born, and I'm not going to say that one. Over the past 5 or so years, there's been a lot of activity. A lot of people from around the world have contributed in some way, shape or form, including myself. And just a couple of months ago, the first commercially produced radio, the CS7000 M17, was released. And I will be demonstrating one of those later in the talk. They've also just released, or about to, the M17, the CS7000 Plus, which can or will soon be able to do DMR and M17 switchable without having to reflash the firmware. And eventually the plan is to incorporate other modes as well. So there's a lot happening. So we get to those who are into coding and creating things. M17 is currently under active development. Most parts of what we require are open. There's actually relatively little that's not available. The reflector MREFD, which we'll be using on the back end, is available, widely deployed, well over 100 deployments. I haven't actually counted on how many I listed publicly, but well over in the hundreds anyway. There is an alternative software called URFD. It's a multi-mode reflector, and that also supports M17. Repeats and hotspots, Jonathan Naylor's MMDVM is pretty much the workhorse here. Full M17 support in production if you load the latest firmware. And on the software side, WPSD, which is started life as a fork of Pi-Star, officially supports it and is the officially recommended software for using with your MMDVM. In more recent times, Pi-Star also supports M17, but because they're catching up, it's taking a bit longer to really get stable. So we recommend WPSD if you're going to run an M17 repeater or hotspot. There's some internet clients, namely mVoice and DroidStar. mVoice is written for Linux. It's purely for M17. DroidStar's multi-platform, and it supports M17 along with all the other DV modes. They also have a number of radio modems that you can connect to an existing 9600 capable radio. They're readily available. Some you can build, some you can purchase, and I can show what one of those looks like. Radios, there's a number of radios, mostly powered by the OpenRTX firmware, which is a project running in parallel. It started out firmware for the MD380 and MD380UV and clone radios. Those require a minor hardware modification, and there's a lot of them in the wild. And now we have commercially produced M17 radios such as the CS7000 series, and they also run OpenRTX incidentally. And software-defined radios have support from Angel SDR and GNU Radio if you want to transmit as well as receive. SDR++ has a very good receive-only implementation. And OpenWebRX is really good if you want to let the world listen to your M17 repeater. Its M17 implementation is also very good. And RPyTX can be used to transmit as a transmit-only device. All right, so this all sounds good. I want in. How can you get involved? There's people all over the world doing it. The main activity is now based on Discord. Matrix got separated recently due to repeated spam issues, so the M17 Discord I recommend. Matrix is still there, but it's running isolated from the rest of the network. And like any open source software, of course, you can do software development, hardware development. You can be a tester, which I actually do quite a lot of testing and bug hunting. In fact, I discovered a bug in OpenRTX on the CS7000 while I was preparing for tonight's talk, and fed that back to the OpenRTX developers. Another one I'm doing is publicity and communication. That's exactly what this talk's about. There are people building enclosures using 3D CAD and printing for those that are equipped. Of course, getting on the air and operating and telling people about M17, like I do myself, there's another thing, and many other ways. Just get in touch on the Discord and find out what people are doing. And the important thing, how do we get on the air? If we're on the internet, we've got mVoice for the Linux users, the GitHub link there, so again, open source. And DroidStar, there's an Android version from the Play Store. iOS is actually now a fork by another developer of DroidStar, as says available via TestFlight. It's actually called DroidStar DMR. For your Linux, you generally build from source, and there are Windows builds available for, like most of us don't have Windows development environments. You can download a Windows build, a DroidStar, which actually looks just like it does on a mobile, but works through the PC. There's also some cross-mode tools which I make use of on some reflector channels, USRP to M17 or Bridge All-Star, and similar software to M17. You can link using DMR to M17 direct between DMR talk group and an M17 reflector module. And DV switch doesn't support M17 itself, but it can. It speaks USRP, so you can use it in combination with USRP to M17 to bridge systems. And I do a lot of that on the M17 432 reflector. I've got a number of channels bridged that way. This one's a bit involved, so I'll just talk through. Sorry about the small font, but there's a lot of ways to get on air using radio. RF's available now, and here in Bendigo we actually have one M17 repeater, VK3RCQ's multi-mode, M17 capable, on the other side of town from myself. And VK3RIR, which is currently on test on a dummy load. I do plan to have it up sometime next year. Also supports M17. As I said before, your hotspots can be upgraded, and WPSD is the recommended software just because it supports more mature and it's fairly reliable. There's a number of modems. If you've got a 9600 capable radio, like Yaesu's are particularly good, like a 8900 or one of the FTM series. You can use one of these. M17 client by Jonathan, G4KLX, runs on the MDVM modem boards, and can be used with said radio to provide an M17 transceiver. Or you can use a hotspot and have a very QRP transceiver around the tens of milliwatt range. GUI available via X or Nexion touchscreen. The TNC4 from Mobile Linked, and WX90 supports using an Android app, so you can talk on your phone and plug the TNC into a 9600 capable radio, and it works. I found the app depends on the phone. Probably newer phones are probably a little bit better, but my old Android phone, it was a bit finicky on, but I could get it to work. M17 Tools is a suite of software that can do M17 using a sound card interface. The DigiRig is with the 9600 cable, has been said to work quite well. Doesn't like my Windows laptop, so I haven't had much success there, but Linux users in particular report that works quite well. And Module 17 is a self-contained microphone and modem for an external radio. It's available. The older version, 0.1e, is available from Liligo online, or you can order the boards. And from JLPCB, the newer 1.0 version, currently you have to order the boards from JLPCB. There's a number of radios, CS7000, M17, and CS7000 Plus from Connect Systems. Both of those use OpenRTX for M17. The OpenRTX firmware, as I said previously, can also be used with the MD380 series and the Retevis RT3 series radios. And it looks like in the medium term, the Baofeng BM1701 will be supported. And so, yeah, there's things happening there. And for one-way receive or transmit, SDR++, OpenWeb RX and RPyTX. And on the shelf at the moment, but under development, is OpenHT, which is an advanced multi-mode HT based on a software-defined radio platform. And it runs on 70 centimeters and 2.4 gigahertz, mainly because that's what the RF chip they're using supports. So this is the radio I'll show you. And this is the CS7000 M17. That's actually my radio. I took a photo of it this afternoon. We ready there for a demonstration there, Mark?
Roger.
Okay, I'll just get a bit away from the PC. I'll leave that on. I'll show you. I can show you a live video at the end.
VK5QI, VK3JED. This is the M17 using the CS7000 M17 radio from Connect Systems and OpenRTX firmware, so that will give you an idea what the motor's capable of. How does it sound back at the hall? And we'll see if Dale's there. He's operating on Droidstar. So are you there, Dale? VK5TUX, VK3JED.
VK3JED, VK5TUX returning. Yeah, very good evening there, Tony. Yeah, I'm receiving. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Dale. And for everyone's information, Dale is running Droidstar, so that's a direct internet access option that most people use when they're going in direct. But these radios are getting quite common now. Anyway, I'll go back to the PowerPoint and just finish off. There's only a few more slides left, and they're fairly quick ones. VK5QI, VK3JED.
Yep, Roger. Thanks, Tony.
So that was the CS7000 M17. I'll just show you some of the other equipment I've got. That's the MMDVM with the M17 client, and that's a that's the Pi with the board on at the bottom. At the top's a sound device for connecting a headset. So I put the headset on, and that's controlled through a PC running X. I use a remote X because I don't have a HDMI setup that's portable enough for it. This is the TNC Android phone. Mine's a TNC3. That is an older version. There's a TNC4 now. So you talk on the Android phone, the TNC plugs in using a cable. It's not shown to the radio. So it's another modem. And this is the Module 17, the 0.1E, which also runs OpenRTX. As you can see, OpenRTX is quite flexible. And that, again, plugs in with the the DE9 connector at the top near the microphone to a 9600 capable radio. So yeah, you might want to take a photo of this screen, so I'll leave it up for a bit. So here's a number of bits of information, M17 and Open RTX sites, as well as DroidStar, some of the tools, WPSD, and I haven't put these slides up yet, but I will. They'll be available on that link, hopefully by the end of tonight, if I remember. If you want to download a copy of the slides. And Fridays, it starts pretty much from Australia midnight and goes through till midnight at the other end of the world, so sort of late on Saturday is M17 Activity Day, where people try and get on M17-M17 Charlie Reflector, and that's linked to my M17-432 Charlie and one other in the States, I think. So yeah, that's some useful links. And finally, if we have any questions, I'll hand that back to the floor.
Yep. Thank you very much, Tony. Any questions from the floor in here? Oh, any questions on Zoom? Nope, nothing.
Don't be shy.
No worries. All right. Looks like we haven't got any questions in the hall, Tony. Thanks again for your talk. Hopefully we'll get some more stations on M17, and
no worries.
Forward to sharing the slides out with the group.
It's a fun mode, and yeah, definitely if you like playing around with hardware, software, or bug hunting, or anything to do with open source, definitely look at getting involved. Especially if you're a sort of embedded developer or something, to be really good. But there's plenty of other ways for non-developers like myself to get involved, as you've seen.
Yeah, thank you very much. Everyone give a round of applause for Tony in the hall.